Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive.
It's great to be back.
You know, we've been getting a ton of messages lately, and you guys are really digging deep into these tougher topics with us.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
But we've also been getting the message that you guys are ready for something a little bit lighter, a little more fun.
Absolutely, a bit of a change of pace.
So today we are doing that, and we are tackling a question that I know has probably sparked a lot of debate at your kitchen tables.
Yeah.
Is breakfast really all that it's cracked up to be?
Right. It is. I mean, it's one of those things like breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But is it, though?
That's what we're going to unpack today.
Let's get into it.
So we've got a ton of research and articles and even some personal anecdotes to get through.
Sounds good.
And to make things even more interesting today, we're actually going to be taking sides.
Oh, this is going to be good.
I know, right? So to kick things off, I'm going to be representing the pro-breakfast side. I mean, after all, I did grow up on those commercials. Gotta get my bowl full of whatever sugary cereal to start the day. It's like ingrained in our brains.
It really is.
But beyond the marketing, there is some science backing up breakfast, I have to say.
Okay, well, convince me. Lay it on me. Why is breakfast the champion of meals?
Well, think about it this way. You wake up after a long night's sleep. Your body's basically been fasting for hours. So breakfast provides that, much-needed fuel to kind of kickstart your metabolism, replenish your energy. It's like jump-starting your car in the morning, you know?
Okay, so you're saying it gives your body the energy it needs to get going for the day.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about energy levels. Studies have shown that breakfast eaters actually tend to have better nutrient intake overall. They're more likely to hit those recommendations for vitamins, minerals, fiber, all that good stuff.
Interesting. So breakfast sets you up for a healthier day.
Exactly. It's like woe begun is half done,
right?
If you start your day with a nutritious breakfast, you're way more likely to stay on track with your healthy eating goals.
That makes sense.
Right. And plus, let's not forget about weight management. Research suggests that breakfast eaters tend to have an easier time maintaining a healthy weight.
Now, hold on a second. Are you saying that if you skip breakfast, you're going to automatically gain weight? Because I have some thoughts brewing over here on this side of the table.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. All right, bring on the counter-arguments. Let's hear why you think skipping breakfast might not be such a bad idea.
Well, for starters, let's talk about intermittent fasting, this whole trend that's been going around. You familiar with that?
Of course. It's everywhere. I've even tried it myself. But I'm curious to hear your take on it.
Okay, so intermittent fasting is basically an eating pattern where you cycle between eating and fasting. And guess what often gets skipped during those fasting windows?
Let me guess. Breakfast.
Breakfast.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. But why, though? What's the logic behind ditching breakfast in this case?
Well, there's a lot of research coming out that suggests that intermittent fasting can actually have some pretty impressive health benefits. Things like reducing inflammation, improving brain function, and even cellular repair.
Okay, now you've got my attention. But I have to say, I'm still a little bit skeptical. I mean, won't you be starving and totally dragging by noon if you skip breakfast?
I know, that's what I thought too. But here's the thing. Our bodies are really amazing at adapting. So when you skip breakfast consistently, your body starts to get used to it. And you might even find that you're not as hungry as you expect.
So it's all about retraining your body and your hunger cues.
Exactly. Plus, don't forget about those awesome hormones. You know, in the morning, our bodies, they naturally make hormones like cortisol that suppress your hunger and give you energy.
So we're already prepped for the morning without even eating.
That's what the research is showing, yeah. And there's even more. Some studies have shown that eating breakfast can actually cause bigger blood sugar spikes later on.
Wait, really?
So, think about it. When you eat breakfast, your body releases insulin to process all that glucose, right? But if you're always eating high-carb breakfast things loaded with sugar, your body can actually start to become less sensitive to insulin over time.
Ah, I see. So all those sugary cereals and pastries are actually setting us up for those big crashes later on.
Exactly. So while skipping breakfast might seem counterintuitive for blood sugar, it could actually be a good thing for some people, especially those who are sensitive to those blood sugar swings.
This is getting good. So we've got strong arguments on both sides here. But I think before we go any further, we need to address some of the common worries that people have about skipping breakfast. You know, won't I be tired and sluggish? What about my blood sugar crashing? I think a lot of our listeners are probably wondering the same things.
For sure. Those are totally valid concerns. And we're going to dive into all of that in the next part of our deep dive.
Perfect. So for everyone listening, stay tuned because we're going to be debunking some myths and giving you the science behind those breakfast anxieties.
All right, so let's tackle those breakfast anxieties head on. First up, the fear of feeling tired and sluggish without that morning meal.
Yeah, this is a big one. I think a lot of people worry they'll be like dragging their feet all morning if they don't have breakfast.
Totally. But remember those hormones we were talking about earlier?
Yeah.
The ones that naturally suppress hunger and boost energy in the morning? They're still doing their thing even if you skip breakfast.
So are you saying those hormones can, like, give us enough of a boost to get going even without eating?
Exactly. And some studies are even showing that people who regularly skip breakfast actually report feeling more energized throughout the morning. It's like their bodies have gotten better at using their stored energy.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the blood sugar crash? Isn't that like a real concern when you skip breakfast?
It definitely comes up a lot. But skipping breakfast doesn't automatically mean your blood sugar is going to plummet. Remember, our bodies are incredibly adaptable.
Okay, but how does the body regulate blood sugar if you don't eat anything in the morning?
Well, when you skip breakfast, your body actually starts tapping into its glycogen stores for energy. And glycogen is basically stored glucose. It's readily available to help keep your blood sugar levels stable.
So it's like a backup energy reserve.
Right. And get this, some studies suggest that eating breakfast can actually lead to even more significant blood sugar fluctuations throughout the day.
Really? How is that possible?
Well, think about it this way. When you eat, your body releases insulin to process that glucose, right?
Yeah.
But if you're always eating those high-carb breakfasts, especially those packed with sugar, your body can actually become less sensitive to insulin over time.
Ah, I see what you mean. So it's like those sugary breakfast cereals are actually setting us up for those energy highs and crashes later.
Exactly. So skipping breakfast might seem counterintuitive for blood sugar, but it could actually be a good strategy for some people, especially those who tend to experience those big blood sugar swings.
This is so interesting. So we've been talking about how skipping breakfast can be healthy for some people, but are there times when breakfast is actually beneficial?
Yes, good point. Skipping breakfast can be perfectly healthy for many people, but there are definitely some groups who might benefit from having a morning meal.
Okay, who are we talking about here?
Well, athletes, for example, people with physically demanding jobs, they often need that extra fuel to power through their workouts or long shifts.
Right, if you're burning a ton of calories, you need to replenish that energy.
Exactly. And it's not just about energy levels. Breakfast can also help with muscle recovery and growth, which is super important for athletes.
So for those hitting the gym hard or working on their feet all day, breakfast is key for performance and recovery.
Absolutely. And pregnant women, their bodies have increased nutritional needs, both for themselves and for the baby.
So it's all about getting the right nutrients for a healthy pregnancy.
Exactly. And a balanced breakfast can help with things like morning sickness and blood sugar levels, which is super important during pregnancy.
And what about growing kids and teenagers? They're always on the go.
You're right. Children and teenagers are going through huge growth spurts, so they definitely need more nutrients. Breakfast can provide the fuel they need for school and just their overall well-being.
It's like giving them the premium fuel they need. But it's not just about how much they eat, it's about what they eat.
Totally. We want to make sure they're getting nutrient-rich foods, not just empty calories. So whole grains, fruits, vegetables, lean protein, healthy fats.
So instead of those sugary cereals, we should be aiming for things like oatmeal with berries and nuts, maybe a veggie omelet or some whole wheat toast with avocado and eggs.
Yes, nutrient-dense options are key. Now, even within these groups, individual needs can vary. Some athletes might prefer to work out on an empty stomach, while others need to eat beforehand.
So it really comes down to listening to your body and figuring out what works best for you.
Absolutely. And if you're not sure, it's always a good idea to chat with your doctor or a registered dietitian to get some personalized advice.
Right. They can help you come up with a meal plan that's good for your needs and your goals.
Exactly. So we've seen that skipping breakfast can be healthy, but there are certain cases where a morning meal is a good thing.
It's all about understanding your own body and making informed choices. And speaking of individual needs, one of the sources we looked at mentioned that breakfast might be especially important for people with certain conditions like diabetes.
Oh, yeah, that's an important one. The relationship between breakfast and diabetes is definitely complex.
Okay, so let's break it down. How does breakfast affect blood sugar for people with diabetes?
One source we found said that for some people with diabetes, skipping breakfast actually makes their blood sugar control worse throughout the day.
Interesting. That seems to go against the idea that breakfast causes blood sugar spikes.
It does, which shows you how important it is to find what works for you.
Yeah.
Some people might do better skipping breakfast, while others might need it for better blood sugar.
So it sounds like you really need to experiment and work with your doctor to find what's best.
Exactly. And it's not just about whether to eat breakfast, but also what to eat. Choosing foods that are lower on the glycemic index and higher in fiber and protein can help to prevent those blood sugar spikes.
So for anyone with diabetes, making smart food choices is crucial whether they choose to eat breakfast or not.
For sure. Which brings us back to this idea of individualized approaches, something we've been talking about throughout this whole deep dive.
Right. It's about understanding your own needs and working with your healthcare provider to create a plan that's best for your health.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I think we've covered a lot in this part. We've talked about those common worries, explored situations where breakfast might actually be beneficial, and even discussed how it all relates to certain health conditions.
It's been fascinating, for sure. It's really empowering to move past those simple messages and get into the nitty-gritty of nutrition.
I agree. It's about being in charge of your own health and making choices that work for you. But before we wrap up today, I think there's one more really interesting thing we need to talk about. The cultural norms surrounding breakfast. Are you ready to dive into that?
I am all ears.
You know, it's funny, as we've been going through all this stuff about breakfast,
Yeah.
I can't help but think about all those like cultural and societal things around it, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's interesting how we just like accept certain beliefs about food, even when the science isn't totally clear.
Yeah, it's like we're programmed from when we're kids to think that breakfast is like a must-do, like you have to eat breakfast.
Right. Like
Yeah.
it's this symbol of, being productive and starting your day off right.
Exactly. And then if you skip breakfast, it's almost like you're being lazy or unhealthy.
Totally. And think about all those cereal commercials aimed at kids, like promising them they'll have the best day ever if they eat their cereal. Or all those campaigns about how breakfast helps you do well in school.
It's almost like breakfast has become this way to show that you're healthy and responsible. Makes you wonder if we've been missing the whole point of, what works for you as a person.
Right. Like our bodies all work in different ways. Some people wake up hungry and some people don't.
Totally.
And you know what? I'm definitely someone who needs a little bit of time to wake up in the morning. A big breakfast just doesn't sound good until later in the day.
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We all have different rhythms.
It's about being flexible,
Yeah.
honoring what works for your body.
Exactly. And those rhythms might even change over time. It could depend on your lifestyle or your stress level or even your hormones. So many things.
It's true. What works for you today might not work a few months from now, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's all about adapting and figuring out what feels best for you.
I love that. Okay, well, I think this is a perfect place to wrap things up. We've talked about so much today, from the science of breakfast to, like you said, all the cultural stuff around it.
It's been a great discussion. I hope this has encouraged everyone listening to maybe rethink some of their beliefs about breakfast.
Me too. And as always, we want to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
So tell us, what does your ideal morning routine look like? Do you need a huge breakfast or do you take it slow? Share your thoughts with us on social media, and we'll see you next time.